Meemaw's Georgie and Mandy's first marriage heartbreak makes her the Big Bang Theory appearance more peculiar. Georgie Cooper's life has always been a study in contrasts. On young Sheldon, she's the sister of a child prodigy, the daughter navigating a chaotic Texas household, and ultimately a woman whose choices ripple across her family's timeline in unexpected ways. In Season 2 of Georgie and Mandy's first marriage, viewers are offered a fresh lens on her adulthood, one that paints heartbreak and self-discovery with a far more intimate brush. Yet what makes Georgie's journey even more fascinating is how it casts a peculiar light on her brief appearances in The Big Bang Theory, a show that has long been considered a different narrative universe, yet now feels intertwined with Georgie's personal trajectory in ways most fans never realized. To understand the peculiarity, we first need to dissect what Season 2 of Georgie and Mandy's first marriage accomplishes. The first season set the stage with a narrative many expected, a young couple navigating the trials of early marriage. But behind the sitcom-friendly exterior lurks subtle heartbreak, particularly for Georgie. She enters marriage full of hope, buoyed by the promise of love and stability, yet she quickly encounters the fractures that early adult life can expose: financial pressures, misaligned expectations, and the inevitable friction between romantic idealism and reality. Season 2 doesn't shy away from these tensions. The storytelling is intimate, almost unbearably so at times, giving viewers access to Georgie's private moments of doubt and disappointment. One episode opens with Georgie staring at her reflection in a bedroom mirror, the weight of failed communication with Mandy etched in her eyes. It's a quiet scene, almost mundane, yet profoundly effective in conveying the slow erosion of a partnership once thought unbreakable. The heartbreak is not explosive, it doesn't demand laughter or tears from the audience, but it is deeply, humanly relatable. Georgie's vulnerability here is pivotal. It signals a departure from the lighter, sometimes comedic struggles of the first season, leaning into a realism that Season 2 handles with remarkable finesse. What makes this heartbreak even more fascinating is the way it reframes Georgie's appearances on The Big Bang Theory. In TBBT, Georgie is largely presented as a side character. She exists as a plot device to provide context for Sheldon's quirks or to serve as a foil to his social awkwardness. Her scenes are brief, often lighthearted, and stripped of any real emotional depth. She laughs, teases, and occasionally drops one-liners that highlight her Texan upbringing or her sibling relationship with Sheldon. Seen in isolation, these moments suggest a carefree, almost flippant personality, someone who navigates life with ease, unburdened by deep emotional struggle. However, Season 2 of her spin-off complicates that picture. Knowing the depth of Georgie's heartbreak, her TBBT appearances acquire an unexpected subtext. Every joke about family, every teasing remark toward Sheldon suddenly feels shaded by the knowledge of her later experiences. When she laughs at Sheldon's obsessive quirks, it is no longer just sibling banter, it's an adult's attempt to find levity amidst a world that has already tested her resilience. When she pokes fun at her own past or subtly critiques a situation, there is an underlying awareness, a quiet wisdom born not from naivety but from lived heartbreak. This juxtaposition is both jarring and fascinating. On one hand, TBBT's audience originally encounters Georgie in a vacuum, one that prioritizes humor over narrative complexity. On the other hand, viewers familiar with her spin-off see every moment through a lens tinged with empathy, hindsight, and melancholy. The seemingly casual lines in TBBT take on new meaning. A sideways glance at her brother's oddities, a joke about her parents, or even a brief discussion of her career or relationships can now be interpreted as the subtle deflection of someone who has endured disappointment and yet retains her humor as armor. Georgie's heartbreak enriches her character in a way that makes her TBBT moments almost uncanny. Moments that were once merely amusing now carry the weight of unspoken experience. Moreover, Season 2 of the spin-off intentionally highlights the contrast between youthful expectation and adult reality, which further accentuates the peculiarity of Georgie's TBBT appearances. In one particularly striking episode, Georgie reflects on the early optimism of her marriage, remembering how she believed love could solve everything. That idealism, set against the reality of separation and self-reinvention, casts an ironic shadow on the seemingly carefree Georgie of TBBT. It's as if the sitcom version of her exists in a parallel timeline where heartbreak never happened. But knowing the eventual arc makes that parallel Georgie feel almost like an actor performing a script while her real-life counterpart silently observes from the wings, scarred yet wiser. This phenomenon also sparks an interesting meta-commentary on audience perception and narrative design. TBBT fans, who might have only encountered Georgie in comedic contexts, are now invited to reconsider her as a fully fleshed-out character. The layered storytelling of the spin-off challenges viewers to reconcile two versions of the same person, one defined by humor and brevity, and another shaped by profound emotional growth. For the modern viewer, this duality is compelling, even disorienting. It raises questions about how we interpret character behavior when additional narrative layers are introduced retroactively, and how the perceived simplicity of a sitcom can be subverted by retrospective context. Additionally, the narrative choices in Season 2 of Georgie and Mandy's first marriage subtly mirror some of the thematic undercurrents of TBBT itself. TBBT often explored themes of emotional isolation, social awkwardness, and the struggle to balance intellect with intimacy. Georgie's spin-off, while centered on romance and personal relationships, echoes these themes in her adult life. Her heartbreak, her attempts to communicate effectively with Mandy, and her struggle to reconcile expectations with reality all resonate with the broader philosophical inquiries present in TBBT. How do we navigate a world that constantly challenges our assumptions about love, family, and self-worth? In this sense, the spin-off and TBBT are not entirely separate. They exist in conversation with one another, each shedding new light on the other. Perhaps the most poignant example comes in a crossover-esque moment during a hypothetical scene where adult Georgie visits a university campus, observing students and faculty with the quiet attentiveness of someone who has endured both disappointment and growth. If we imagine her in a TBBT context at that moment, every interaction she has, whether with Sheldon's professors, a peer, or even a new acquaintance, carries an added layer of poignancy. She is no longer merely the comic foil. She is a survivor of love, an observer of human frailty, and a character whose laughter now contains a bittersweet aftertaste. Her humor becomes sharper, more precise, more emotionally intelligent, qualities that TBBT could only hint at in fleeting glimpses. Another intriguing facet of this peculiarity is the impact on familial dynamics. Georgie's heartbreak and maturity inevitably affect how we view her relationship with Sheldon. In TBBT, Sheldon is largely the eccentric center, with Georgie as the sometimes sarcastic, sometimes caring foil. But in light of her spin-off experiences, Georgie's patience, her subtle guidance, and her occasional exasperation with Sheldon feel earned rather than situational. Every act of indulgence or irritation is informed by someone who has learned, often painfully, about compromise, empathy, and human complexity. Sheldon, in a sense, is now both a source of comedy and a canvas upon which we project Georgie's emotional evolution. Finally, it's worth noting the broader cultural resonance of this development. In today's era of interconnected narratives, where spin-offs, prequels, and shared universes dominate popular media, the retroactive deepening of Georgie's character underscores how storytelling can evolve over time. What was once a minor sitcom appearance can now be reinterpreted as part of a sophisticated,